guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have another top 5 favorite products to share with you. So if you haven't been watching this series, basically I'm just going category by category through all of my makeup and letting you guys know what my top 5 favorite products from each category is. So far I have just done foundations and face powders, and today we're going to be going through concealers. So I'm kind of going in order of how you would apply it. I am going to do primers next, so that is a little bit out of order, but anyway, today we're going to be talking about concealers. So all 5 of the concealers that I picked for this video are concealers that I would use underneath my eye. Typically when I'm concealing, that is the main purpose of concealer for me. I every once in a while need to spot conceal, but typically I won't buy a concealer just to be a spot concealer. I like things that can perform both as a spot concealer and underneath my eye because, as I mentioned, the main concealing that I need to do is underneath my eye. I do have very dark circles under my eyes, so I do prefer something with more full coverage. I do have a little bit of fine lines underneath my eye, but in general, I can usually get away with using a little bit more of a thicker consistency concealer because I usually go for coverage over worrying about if it's going to crease underneath my eye, if that makes sense. So like I mentioned, I do have a little bit of like fine lines and wrinkles under my eye, but what I do is I just really prep my eye really well before applying a concealer. So I use an eye cream, both AM and PM. I highly recommend the Algenist Complete Eye Renewal Balm because that one is very, very hydrating, and it's really gonna plump up your under eye area, which should help prevent any creasing or collecting into fine lines and wrinkles of your concealer. So definitely prep really good before you use these concealers because a lot of these are a little bit on the heavier side, but in general that is my preference for concealer. So did want to get that out of the way because everyone has kind of a different preference for products, and if you don't like a full coverage concealer for underneath your eye, if you go with something a little bit more lightweight traditionally, you might not like my picks. So, but let's go ahead and get into the top 5 concealers. So I'm going to start with this one here. This one, of all the concealers that I'm going to show you, is more of like a medium coverage where everything else is very full coverage. But this is from NARS. This is the NARS Creamy Concealer. I love this concealer. This has been talked about on YouTube for years and years and years, and it really is just a very good concealer. I feel like this is one of those concealers that's going to work for most people, whether you like a lot of coverage or if you like something more lightweight to prevent creasing. This one is kind of right in the middle on both of them. It's not completely full coverage. Like I mentioned, it is more of a medium coverage, but because it is so creamy, it's a very hydrating formula. It's not going to accentuate any fine lines or wrinkles, and it's just a very good concealer. They just came out with a ton of new shades, so it's very likely that you'll be able to find a shade that will work for your skin tone, and I just really love it. The shade I have here is Chantilly. This one's a little bit light for me. I actually own Vanilla as well, and this one I can only use in the winter time because it is very, very good for fair skin, but it's extremely brightening. So I definitely like using this when I'm at my most fair and just for brightening underneath the eye because it is a little bit too light for my skin tone. I definitely would not use this particular shade for spot concealing because the shade is too light for me, but Vanilla is a much better match for me. And I will have all the products linked down below if you want to check out prices or anything like that. All right, next up, let's switch it up a little bit and talk about a drugstore concealer. This one is from Maybelline. This is called the Master Conceal. This concealer is really good. This actually reminds me a lot of the Makeup Forever HD concealer, their newer one. Not the full cover one, but the newer one. The way that this concealer works, it's extremely pigmented. So a little product goes a long way. I just squeeze way too much out of there. That little bit is gonna go so dang far. So I definitely recommend just applying a small amount and then blending it out. And if you need more, adding more on, because it is a very, very pigmented concealer, but it's very full coverage. It's very creamy. I don't notice it accentuating any fine lines underneath my eye, and I definitely get the coverage I need from this one. Also, it's really inexpensive because it is from the drugstore, so I definitely recommend trying this one out. I really, really like this one. I'm actually testing out another new one from Maybelline, the Better Skin. So far, I've been really enjoying that, but I haven't owned it very long, so I didn't want to include it in this video, but I really am enjoying Maybelline's concealers. Next up, since I kind of mentioned it already, we'll go ahead and talk about this here. So this guy is from Makeup Forever. This is their full cover concealer. concealer. So this concealer is extremely full coverage, and it is on the thick side. So definitely when you're using this, again, start out with just a little bit of product. This tube, it is kind of more expensive, but this tube, you get so much product in here. It's half of a fluid ounce, and you need such a small amount each time you use it. This will last you forever. Whenever I show this to clients, they're like, oh, it's so expensive. I feel like it's like $23 or something. But when I show them how little you need to actually make it work, it makes sense because this tube will last you for such a long time. It is totally worth the money. And again, it is extremely full coverage. So I know when I use this, I don't need to use any color correcting underneath for my dark circles. I can apply this and it's gonna cover everything. It is fantastic. It is a little bit on the heavy side, as I mentioned. So if you have a lot of fine lines and wrinkles underneath your eye, you might not like this one as much. I would definitely not recommend it for more aging skin. I don't know, definitely give it a try. So if you want to try something like this, I would suggest to get a sample first and make sure it works for your skin. But for me, this is fantastic. I love it. It's so good. It's also a great spot concealer if you have a lot of discoloration on your face that you're trying to conceal, especially like acne scarring or you know, scars in general. Any discoloration that's pretty heavy that you're having a hard time covering, this stuff is fantastic. Definitely give that a try. Next up, I have a concealer that is not going to surprise anybody, but it's very new for me. I did just pick this up a few weeks ago, but I've been pretty much using it nonstop. It is the concealer that I have on underneath my eyes today, and this is from Tarte. It is the Tarte Shape Tape. I finally broke down and bought this. If you guys didn't know, this is an Ulta exclusive, so we don't carry it at Sephora. So I hadn't bought it just because I never hardly ever shop at Ulta, but finally I broke down and made a trip there and picked it up. This is really good. I hate to admit it, but it is really good. I don't necessarily love the applicator. It has a very large doe foot applicator. I feel like that's a little bit big for the type of concealer this is. This concealer is very similar to the full cover concealer from Makeup Forever. However, it's just a little bit more creamy, not as thick of a consistency. So it is very full coverage. A little bit goes a long way. So you don't want to use that doe foot applicator and draw on like a huge triangle under your eyes because you will not be able to blend it out. You want to be a little bit more sparing with this. What I like to do is I take the applicator out and I dot a couple dots in a triangular shape, and then I use my finger to kind of spread it out. So, and then I use my beauty blender to blend it in. But it's a little bit more work, but it has a beautiful effect. It is very full coverage, but being creamy at the same time. So it reminds me of a cross between my NARS Creamy Concealer and the Makeup Forever Concealer. The texture and consistency is like the NARS Concealer, but the coverage you get is like the Makeup Forever Full Cover. So it's a very good concealer. I'm definitely obsessed with this and definitely gonna repurchase it when I run out. All right, and then the last concealer for my top 5 favorite is from Lancome, and this is called the Effercarnez Waterproof Long Lasting Under Eye Concealer. It is specifically meant for the under eye area, but you can use this on your face as well, of course. And this one, again, is very similar to the NARS one. It's more of a medium coverage. I would call it like between a medium to full coverage, and it's very creamy and very hydrating. So this is really good as well if you have a little bit more texture underneath your eye. I think you'll really like this one because it does not accentuate any fine lines or wrinkles, and I really like it a lot. So definitely recommend that guy as well. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching my top 5 favorite concealers. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And as I mentioned, I will have all the products linked down below for you as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye, you guys.